لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر ولا إله إلا الله. Welcome in continuous coverage of Saudi to the great season of Hajj. I have the honor and pleasure together to have with me two great sheikhs, Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Rahwani and also Sheikh Umar ibn Mani al-Jihani. We're going to discuss in this blessed hour the virtues of the Hajj. So welcome Sheikh Muhammad.
Welcome all the viewers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Also same to you Sheikh Umar, you're most welcome in our studio, and we'd like also to shed some light about your experience during the previous day of Arafah.
Let me thank you as a beginning of for welcoming me, and I appreciate the time on the second channel, the Saudi second channel. Then let me say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen, nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira wa ba'd. In this blessed time of Hajj, in the time where the response to the call of Ibrahim is being manifested by hundreds of thousands, if I say by the millions, 2 and some million people in this blessed place of the land of Mecca, we, alhamdulillah, ask Allah Azza wa Jal to include us of those who have been accepted in this great journey to Allah Azza wa Jal. And specifically today, which is the 10th of the month of Dhul Hujjah, and the day which is known as Yawm al-Nahr, the day of slaughtering the sacrificial animal. And prior to it came the day of Arafah. And the day of Arafah, as we know, this day and the day of Arafah are the two most virtuous days of these 10 virtuous days of Dhul Hujjah. And many a times we look at the night of Qadr in Ramadan and we give it emphasis. But yet when we look at these 2 days, we tend to neglect the virtuousness of these 2 days of Dhul Hujjah, which is the 9th and the 10th. And this is due to the concept of not realizing the importance of these 2 days. We know that Aisha radiallahu anha wa ardaha, our beloved mother, tells us ما من يوم أكثر من أن يعتق الله عز وجل من عبدا من النار من يوم عرفة أو كما ورد في الحديث, that no other day during the days of the year that Allah will exonerate from the hellfire, free those who Allah wills and chooses that they be freed from the hellfire, more than the day of Arafah. And this alone is a virtue that needs to be recognized. Let alone the concept of it being the day that Allah created mankind, and within this initiative of creating mankind, the establishment of what's known as fitrah, the first creation of Adam alayhi salam, peace be upon him. And then Allah established within mankind, He took the descendants of Adam, from the loins of Adam and his fathers, or their fathers, and from there established the concept of Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And they recognized fully that they are the slaves and He is the Lord of all that exists. Hence the concept of innate nature, the natural inclination that man directs to their Creator, recognizing His fullest oneness. Further on, the day of Arafah is the day when Allah descends befitting to His Majesty, and He boasts amongst the chieftains of the angels of Allah, telling them, what have these humans, what have these slaves of mine gathered for? And after they establish that they've come for the forgiveness and the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah says, "Ushhidukum anni qad ghafartu lahum." Bear witness, my angels, that I have forgiven them. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal that me, you, and everyone who has experienced this Hajj, that they are included in this mercy and forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the virtues are many. The virtues are many. And it extends further to the day of slaughtering, the day of Yawm al-Nahar, which is the day that we have experienced, and now it's the end of the day during the evening. And inshallah, tomorrow is the 11th, which is the days known as Ayyam al-Tashriq.
Sheikh Muhammad, what are other virtues that we can nominate for
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In fact, there are a lot of virtues for Hajj pilgrimage, and one of them, in my view, that it draws into the attention of every single Muslim and Muslimah all over the world, either those who participated in Hajj or those who did not join the caravan of the blessed once of coming here, that it draws the timeline of the Islamic history. I still remember two contradictory meanings which are still in my own mind, which is the 6th century, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked at the earth, at all humanity and creations, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abhorred them all, disliked what they are doing, with the exception of a few numbers of people who were adhering to the basic principles of the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ اطَّلَعَ عَلَى الْبَشَرِيَّةِ, on the whole creations, and then He abhorred all of what they do, with the exception of a few number of them. And then you move to the other picture of the scenery, the day of Arafah on 1435 after Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. Actually the 6th century AD, this is the century when the Prophet ﷺ was sent as a source of guidance for that humanity. And you remember 1400 years after, on yesterday, the day of Arafah, when you find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proud of what His slaves doing, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the land or to the earth in a way that suits His majesty. And then He asked that question, what did all those people want? What's their aim? And the angels answer that they seek after your forgiveness. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Shaykh mentioned, that He will bear the angels witness that He has already forgiven all of them. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be among those who are forgiven. So in between the two scenarios, you can find the whole history of Islam, the history of humanity since Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Every single step in Hajj, you will not only find the traces of Ibrahim, but we need to pay our attention that this is the birth of Islam. These are the lands where Jibreel alayhi salam came upon the heart of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the whole message was revealed. Here in Mecca, in those places, this we need to be very aware in every single step that we take, because those places are the steps of the Prophet and his companions. These are the mountains, and these are the places and dwellings where the Prophet ﷺ sacrificed a lot of things for the sake of the prosperity of that religion. This is the place where Bilal radiallahu anhu climbed upon the Kaaba and he announced the adhan after 23 years of persecution and being exiled from their lands. These are the lands where you can find an occasion of revelation of such a verse, where you can find an issuance of a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, an event that the Prophet ﷺ witnessed. So one of the basic virtues of Hajj that a Muslim must put in his heart, that those places and lands witnessed the greatest events in the whole history of humanity, which is the birth of Islam and the challenges that the Prophet ﷺ faced, and that it is concluded in the day of Arafah, when the Prophet ﷺ recited that verse, which is the slogan of Islam. And this is a celebration of the completeness of the sources and the intactness of those fountains from which we get our Islam, and it is preserved for us. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. Today I have completed your religion, or perfected your religion. وأتممت عليكم نعمتي, and completed the blessings upon you. ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا, and I have chosen Islam as your religion.
Let me help myself and the viewers by trying to understand what's the meaning of virtues. When you say virtues of Hajj, what is literally the meaning of virtues and how it is related to Hajj? Sheikh Omar.
Well, the concept of virtue is when something is given preference and maybe even a further concept of importance. And this is really related to Hajj in an endless way, tangibly and intangibly. And it begins with where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tells us, الحج المبرور ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة. That the concept of performing Hajj, this journey to Allah Azza wa Jal, this act of worship, this fifth pillar of Islam, that when it's performed, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ specified a condition that it would be a Hajj mabrur, and the concept of it being mabrur is that it would, mabrur literally would mean that all the pillars, the four pillars have been applied, and the of Hajj.
Yes.
And
what are they?
The pillars of Hajj is to establish the sacral state, which is Ihram,
Okay.
and then standing in Arafah, the same order,
Yes.
standing in Arafah, which we did, alhamdulillah, yesterday, and then performing what's known as Tawaf al-Ifada, which is the Tawaf of Hajj,
Yes.
and this is the pillar. There's a difference between what's known as Tawaf al-Qudum, the circumambulation of entering or coming to Mecca, and this is considered to be a voluntary act. And then there is the pacing, which is known as Sa'i, and that's the act that's done after the Tawaf. And this is, again, in the same order, it's done accordingly. And there is also what's known as Tawaf al-Wada', the farewell Tawaf. And the scholars tell us that because the Tawaf of Wada', the farewell Tawaf, is considered to be a mandatory act of Hajj, one can merge it into the pillar.
Going now back to Hajj al-Mabrur.
Right,
So-
and by doing so, of course, you can delay the Tawaf to the last moments of your existence or presence in Mecca, and then you do the Sa'i after that, and you leave Mecca, and this would fulfill both the Ifada and the Wada'.
People perform the Hajj essentials,
Right.
which are the Ihram, the standing in Arafah along with Tawaf and Sa'i. Then this is titled to be a Hajj
A
Mabrur.
fulfilled Hajj, but it goes further than that. It's not only this. It requires also that one also fulfills the mandatory, the wajibat.
Okay.
And also to ensure that you're not short in your Hajj, also perform the sunnah, perform the voluntary acts. You're not required to, and of course the difference between a pillar and a mandatory act is the pillar must be performed. If it's not performed, the Hajj isn't complete. The mandatory act, however, if it's not done, it can be made up with what's known as fidya or dam.
I'm not sure if I'm trying to simplify it or complicate it, but what's the meaning of Mabrur? Literal translation. Bir.
It is actually a virtuous or blessed with acceptance.
It
Because
also
the
can
word
be something which is good. Then
Right,
the
Originally, actually, the word bir
Uh-huh.
is a very concise and comprehensive word. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained it in the Quran in a very comprehensive way, in the sense that it includes all the righteous and accepted deeds, including acts of creed, number two, acts of manners and behavior, and number three, actual acts which are reflected to patience
And if we put
etc.
it in the context of Hajj, then it is, as Sheikh Muhammad said, it's complete, doing the essentials of Hajj, what is required to be done, and also the other thing that Allah likes so much.
Being vigilant of manners, and especially, of course, first and foremost, the creed. However, really, it's explained within the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and within the ayah. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج. And these three concepts are considered to be...
Can we translate the ayah if possible?
Yes,
help each other?
whoever has intended or has taken or embarked on the journey of Hajj, it would be done in the months of Hajj, which is the month of Shawwal, the 10th of the lunar calendar, the Hijri calendar, and then Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. And the scholars, some of them say that it goes up to the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. Others say no, it extends to the end of the month of Dhul Hijjah. However, the further concept is to establish فَلَا رَفَثَ. Rafath is intercourse or anything that comes before intercourse
Or related to?
Intimacy with one's spouse. Fusuq is all wrongdoings, all faulty
Literally
prohibitions,
corruption.
right, corruptions. And jidal is clear, it's arguing. The Prophet further reiterates this concept when he tells us in the sound hadith, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, من حج فلم يرفث ولم يفسق رجع كيوم ولدته أمه. That whoever performs Hajj and doesn't fall into these matters of fisq, which is wrongdoing, or rafath, which is the concept of intimacy with one's spouse, even the minor or the major concept of intimacy, then this would be considered as a fulfilled Hajj, and they would return as the day they were born, free from any sins.
Fulfilled Hajj meaning Mabrur.
Exactly,
Okay.
Mabrur, yes.
Well, Sheikh Muhammad, trying to understand the concept of Hajj as a whole, all of these virtues, and virtues is fadl, extra, like what he said. We do just these things, and then Allah Azza wa Jal wipe off all of the sins. We are newborn, paradise, the reward. For some people would say moving from your home country to this land, to Mecca, and then moving to Arafah, spending the night in Muzdalifah and going to these three locations and stoning. What does this have to do with what is called worship? And how is this pleasing to Allah?
Jazakumullah khairan. Actually, this is related to the excellent question that you mentioned. Why?
I always ask excellent questions.
Dr. Abdul Aziz, so it is, in fact, it is related to the word bir, the concept of bir, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in calling the close relation between parent and child, He called it birrul walidayn, which is meaning being dutiful to the father and mother. And it is a noble trait which is better explained in the comprehensive concept of worship in Islam. So if we apply the concept of worship in Islam to Hajj, because when the Shaykh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him, talked about the basic constituent elements of Hajj, in the sense of the basic obligatory duties and supererogatory duties, this is what the scholars say, that this is the apparent parts or elements of Hajj. And it is essential. But at the same time, the Sharia talked about the hidden and implied meanings of Hajj, which is the core intent of the concept of worship in Islam, which takes the word birr. That's why it's called Hajjul Mabrur. So it is full of birr, full of righteousness. What is the definition of worship, or what is the definition of birr in Islam? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, explained it in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 177, which He said, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. Righteousness or bir is not to turn your faces to east or west in acts of worship. But وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ, who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, and in the last day, وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ, angels, وَالنَّبِيِّينَ, and the prophets and messengers, وَآتَ الْمَالَ, and he gave of his resources and money and wealth, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, out of even he loves that, وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل. And he gives all of his resources. So it's not, so in this concept, first he talked about monotheism or tawheed in the sense of the creed. These are the elements, the basic elements of iman. Number two, he talked about spending in the cause of Allah. وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب. And then وأقام الصلاة, establishes the prayer. وآتى الزكاة, and spends in zakah, the obligatory zakat. وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا, and those who fulfill their obligations. والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس, and those who are patient in times of adversity and easiness. أولئك الذين صدقوا, those are the truthful, the people of truth. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ, those are the true pious. So in conclusion, this verse gives us a hint of the basic hidden elements that must be fulfilled from the other scenery in the heart of a Hajji. He must have established belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if he sees Him in every single act that he does. So is that he does not just throw the pebbles or go to an Arafah in vain and just for just showing up. No, it is something because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to do it, and he believes in his prophets and messengers, those who communicated the commands of Hajj to him. Moreover, in Hajj you will have a lot of troubles when you go here and there. There are a lot of crowds. It is difficult and it is hard time, and also it is the atmosphere, the environment. You have to be patient. You have to get a lot of moral traits that must be changed actually in your character. You live in Muzdalifah on the earth, so you must help yourself to be simple and earthy. How to live a life of simplicity, how to be humble, how to sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in conclusion, he refers to at-taqwa, piousness or piety, which is the conclusion. And we need to confirm also that piety was a provision that the Hajji should carry with him when he goes to that blessed journey. So these basic items of worship must be present in the mind of a Hajji when he goes and when he moves here and there. But the Quran concentrated on two basic elements, which is consumption of marriage or having intercourse, and number two, avoiding argument. And actually this is a criteria of checking all the list of worship or acts of worship that are mentioned in this hadith, because this is it takes actually patience, and patience is Islam, because this is the conclusion that the person gets out. And there is no taqwa, there is no piety without having patience. This is the reason that the hadith specifically talked about those two items.
Sheikh Omar, to approach this question, Rasulullah said, إنما جعل الطواف بالبيت وبين الصفا والمروة رمي الجمار لإقامة ذكر الله. You know, it's maybe our understanding. How is the going around the Kaaba in tawaf and sa'i between Safa and Marwa, along with stoning the pebbles in Jamarat, is to establish the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jalla?
Alhamdulillah. Well, this begins literally with the response, the very opening of entering into the sacred state, which is known as Ihram. When we say, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, I respond, O Allah, to you I respond. This is in response to the call of Ibrahim, alayhi salam. And in this is
commanded by
Allah, which means this is literally the way that we establish the remembrance of Allah as Allah decreed, And as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam patterned behind Ibrahim and further finalized the message, we are remembering Allah in the way that He decreed and responding to the call that He commanded Ibrahim to give. And this is what the ulama tell us is the opening of Ihram is like the opening of Salah. When we say Allahu Akbar in Salah, we enter into this sacred moment. And one should be vigilant of what they say, the movements of the Salah. Again, the same is applied to Hajj or to Umrah. The words, the utterances are all related to remembering Allah Azza wa Jal, and the remembrance of Allah here is manifested in recognizing His oneness Azza wa Jal, His oneness in the Lordship that He alone uniquely deserves to be recognized in, being the creator, the maintainer, the sustainer, the one who gives life, the one who takes life, the provider. And also through this Lordship of Allah, this necessitates that we worship none other than He, Azza wa Jal, exalted in might and height. And within this concept of the oneness of Allah, Allah has revealed to us His beautiful names and His perfect attributes. And within Hajj, generally, His names are remembered. لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك. The dominion belongs to Allah. One of His most beautiful names is Al-Malik, Al-Malik, the Al-Malik, the one who is sovereign, the owner, the king of all that exists, the true king of all that exists. Al-Malik, the supreme king, which has an emphasis in the concept of Allah's complete overall power in His dominion. And further on, when we perform these acts of Umrah and Hajj, whether they're combined in the three different rituals of Hajj, the three different nusuks, or they're separate in the nusuk known as Ifrad, or separated in Tamattu', one would find that it's a commemoration of the acts of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And literally Ibrahim is the one who circumambulated the Kaaba when he was performing the command or adhering to the command of Allah, when Allah commanded him to build and establish the house of Allah in Mecca, when Allah revealed to him the place, the designated place of the house. وَإِذْ بَوَّأْنَا لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ مَكَانَ الْبَيْتِ أَلَّا تُشْرِكْ بِي شَيْئًا. The أَلَّا تُشْرِكْ بِي شَيْئًا, Allah commands Ibrahim after the building of the house to recognize that the first and foremost duty and requirement upon all mankind is to recognize the oneness of Allah and to shun associationism, shirk, in every way. Hence the remembrance of Allah in its most apparent form, understanding Allah's oneness. Further on, we also have what's known as the pacing from Safa and Marwa. This commemorates the act of our mother Hajar. And this is what Ibn Abbas says when he explained. He said, this is your mother, Ummukum ya bani ma as-sama. He describes the people of the time, or the descendants of Arabs generally, as being the sons of the nomadic life, and that this is what their mother Hajar had to face in the time when she was put in this desert land, and by the will and the command of Allah, it became the land that would be the land that would be sought by pilgrims from all over the world, as we see today.
Along with the provision that Allah brings also from everywhere to Mecca.
Indeed, and this is one of the means that Allah Azza wa Jal has provided for this land. And it manifests itself greatly in the well of Zamzam, doesn't it?
True.
It was a dry land, a desert land, that even our mother Hajar was fearful for her own life and the life of her son Ismail, the messenger and prophet of Allah alayhi salam. But when the time came and they were dependent, again the act of depending upon Allah, dependent upon Allah Azza wa Jal, the gushing of the well of Zamzam was given to them. And later in the life of Ismail, Allah tells Ibrahim or reveals to us after commanding Ibrahim to build the house, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ. And continuously during that time they ask Allah to accept. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Behold, when Ibrahim established, erected the house of Allah from its foundations, and Ismail assisted him, and then Allah tells us during this time that they were doing what they're doing, they were circumambulating the Kaaba and saying, "Oh our Lord, accept from us, you are the all-hearing, the all-knowing. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ." And the scholars of the tafsir, or the commentators, they tell us that this was repeated by Ibrahim and Ismail continuously to internalize the concept of always asking Allah to accept from us our deeds, yet we will never reach the point of fully recognizing Allah to His fullest extent and right, and never will we worship Allah to the fullest right that Allah deserves. However, these means and these ways that Allah has decreed upon us, if Allah accepts them, they will be a means of elevating us and bringing us into the fold of Allah's mercy and favors.
I liked very much the analogy that you have said in the beginning when you said the sanctity of the Hajj as a whole starts from the Ihram until you finish all the rites and rituals of Hajj. It's like the saying Allahu Akbar, starting the Salah to
entering into the sacred state.
And it's a very challenging matter, which is to pay the due focus and concentration on the dhikr and remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, because this is the challenge where the shaitan Khanzab is coming and trying to take you away, and in each and every motion you try to cast him away by saying nothing would make me derail from what I'm doing. Allahu Akbar, God is greater than anything else. And this is the most repeated thing that we do when we make Hajj. But instead of this 5-minute prayer, trying to focus, and sometimes we do half of it, 10% of it, or maybe very little of it. We do the best of ability, at least, to remember Allah Azza wa Jalla and to come with an accepted prayer. The challenge in the Hajj also is to remember Allah Azza wa Jalla, as we have mentioned early, and the takbir of the Salah, Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamid, Allahu Akbar, goes also in the sequence of the Hajj, when you start by, when you come to Tawaf al-Qudum and you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and then you make all of this takbir on the Safa, and then the Marwa, and then you do takbir on Ayyam al-Tashriq, the days of Hajj, the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Also, when you throw the pebbles, you always, sometimes we indulge into materialism, and we are human beings. We're created of body and soul, and body needs food, and the food of the body is what we eat and drink, and the food of the soul is remembrance, because once we suffice and we are hungry and shivering, we get peace and tranquility, and we get okay. الذين آمنوا, those who believe, وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله, and they get their peace and tranquility well established by the remembrance of Allah, by the food of the soul, which is remembering Allah Azza wa Jal, having Allah in the center of your focus of attention to the best of your ability. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Truly, we get this when we suffice ourselves. But nevertheless, because we are human beings, this is the balance between body and soul. So this is a crash course. We used to do this every time, 5 times a day, 5 minutes, maybe 30 minutes maximum per day, minimum per day, if we do not pray Sunnah. But now Allah wants us. This is something very important. That's why Rasulullah is reminding us about the matter of remembering Allah. Not only Rasulullah, if you go back to all the ayat of Hajj, فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَذِكْرِكُمْ أَبَاكُمْ فَإِذَا أَفَضْتُمْ مِنْ عَرَفَاتٍ. All of these ayat of Hajj, each and every segment that you see in Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Al-Hajj, and other surah, you will see that the most important thing about going to Arafah, going to Muzdalifah, remembering Allah, slaughtering the animals that Allah will not get from the blood or the meat, but that He will get the being with Allah. This is what we remind ourselves and the others to be busy with the remembrance of Allah, in order to what Allah Azza wa Jalla said and what Rasulullah said, which is إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الطَّوَافُ الْبَيْتِ, going around the Kaaba between Safa and Marwa and throwing the pebbles, in order to remember Allah Azza wa Jalla, especially when we do it today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, when we, coming to the greatest distractor of all, which is shaitan. You know what you're saying to me? You want me to be busy with something else? Allahu Akbar. And this is what we do. And try to carry this and cast shaitan every time when you go back. When we get busy with something, maybe my work, my workshop, my shop, my business, and as I hear the adhan, and then no, I'm going to finish this on this computer. And then, is it Allahu Akbar or computer Akbar? Is it Allahu Akbar or my business Akbar? And then when we do this and we really quit what we're doing in the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, then we have fulfilled the meaning of Hajj, Salah and Ibadah as a whole, that Allah Azza wa Jal is greater than anything else. Yes, we love matters, but we love Allah Azza wa Jal more than anything else. No one is a really true believer until Allah and His Messenger is being beloved to them more than anything else that we know.
Yes.
How is this as a virtue of Hajj? Dhikr and as a virtue of Hajj, Sheikh Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like actually to add a point which is an answer also to this question. Subhanallah, I need to focus on the meaning of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This name in Arabic language, it has 22 meanings, 22 origins and roots. On the top of them, if you check up on the dictionaries, that it combines two basic origins or meanings. Number one, it is the highest degree and limit of submission and surrender and humility. Number two, it means love and attachment, which means that as long as you draw closer to Him and you submit yourself to Him and you surrender to Him and you put your face on the ground for Him and you leave your practices and your opinions and your false deities and ideas for Him, the more you know Him and the more you love Him and you more to be attached to Him and to be drawn to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. هو المألوه الأعلى. He the supreme beloved one. The one you draw closer and the one you know some of the things, some of his traits and attributes and qualities, the more you become more attached, the more you become more grateful, the more you dare to meet with and engage to Him in prayer and Hajj.
I'm trying just to draw a picture for all the viewers, whether Muslims or not. But we've seen sometimes people who fall in love with celebrities, and they do whatever. And when they see them, one of the things that they say that they worship them. And when they are on the walk of fame, they go on the faces to the floor and do this. This is how love does with humans if it is done the wrong way. And this is what is supposed to be for Allah Almighty. If you really love someone, this is what you say. I worship him. Oh Allah, there is no deity truly worthy of worship except you, the one and only. And then obedience follows. Go ahead,
so when you reach the limit of surrender, this is called dhul. And this is called ibadah. This is the act of worship. This is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this worship is not based on fear, but it is based on deep emotion. And when it fills the heart of a believer, tranquility descends and iman increases and the heart opens up and the revelation fills in and it becomes relaxed, and then it becomes pleased whatever comes to him in this life. So he becomes more aware of what Allah is doing to him of ni'am. So he starts praising Him. So he sees all of the universe and the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, say, Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than what you think and what you have, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest of everything. So the dhikr in that meaning means that you remember your position, a position of a little slave crawling in submission and surrender to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the position of the most majestic, the great entity, the one, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when He commands, you have no choice but to say, here I am at your service. And this is the meaning of the dua, this is the meaning of the prayer that the person always says when he goes here and there in Hajj. لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك. But he stops actually when he throws the pebbles, because this is another position which suits another type of remembrance, another type of expression, which is actually here. He remembers that one of the best, of the greatest obstacles that face his love and surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the shaitan, the Satan. And according to the Quran draws for us the picture of the shaitan, that it is an entity which tries to seduce you, to promise you with actually poverty. It calls upon you to commit all abominable and hated actions and practices. Has steps, has avenues, ways of seducing the sons of Adam. So there is a position that you have to stop here and you say, Allah is the greatest. Allah is greater than all of those temptations and seductions. Allah is greater. And because actually the persons immediately before coming to the Jamarat, he was in Muzdalifah and then in Arafah. And we remember in Arafah that the Prophet ﷺ talked about the shaitan also.
True.
He said that the shaitan has never ever seen humiliated and disgraced in any day or any minute or any place than in Arafah. He was seen actually that he threw the dust on his face and on his hair. Why? I seduced them all the year, and they committed and perpetrated all types of sins that you can imagine. And just Allah comes to them in a blink of an eye and He forgives their sins because of standing in that valley. So the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so gracious and greater. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shown in those days. This is the reason that you say Allahu Akbar, and you increase also saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. We need to emphasize that dhikr is dua also. Because some of the people, they think that when they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just an act of commemoration. No, but it's an act of dua. According to the authentic hadith, when one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered to Ammar ibn Yasir, as far as I remember, and he saluted him, and he didn't answer because Ammar came to Uthman ibn Affan, or no, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas came to Uthman ibn Affan. He saluted him and said, Assalamu alaikum. But actually Uthman was busy with doing something, so he did not answer. He went to Umar ibn Khattab complaining to him. And then Umar noticed that there is a distress in the eyes of Sa'd. And he said, actually, Ya Sa'd, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said that I hear the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that there are phrases, if a person says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will alleviate all of his distress and depression and all problems, and Allah will change his status into easiness. But I forgot actually what are those words, because some people came to the Messenger and feared God. But Uthman actually said, no, but I remember what the Prophet ﷺ said. He said the dua of the noon, the dua of Jonah, the noon, may Allah, Yunus alayhi salam, when he was on the stomach of the whale, on 3 types of darknesses, and he raised his voice, but nobody can hear him, because he's in the depths of the ocean, in the depths of the stomach, and in the depths of the darkness of the night.
Except
and he
Allah.
raised his voice saying, La ilaha illa ant, subhanak, inni kuntu min al-zalimin. There is no deity worthy of worship but you. Glorified be you. I was one of the wrongdoers. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. We responded to him. Is there a dua? He just made a dhikr, but it included the dua. That's why the scholar said that when a person focuses on the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he fulfills what included in his heart and all of his wishes and what he needs to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. So all the dhikr in Hajj is in fact a form of dua and a form of dhikr. Like the day of Arafah, the best form of dua is لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. What type of dua here? The scholar said that when a person says وهو على كل شيء قدير, and Allah is able over everything and able to do anything, he must retain in his heart what he wishes, what he needs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is able to fulfill it. Allah is able to respond to him. Allah is able to make it. Allah is able to bring it to him. Allah is able to make it in the best manner for him. So this is the link between dhikr and dua in Hajj.
Sheikh Omar, going back to the Ayyam al-Tashriq. Ayyam al-Tashriq comes from the word Sharq in Arabic, which is east, and these days, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th, people are practicing the tradition of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and also Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, slaughtering these animals in the name of Allah. And then what they used to do is they used to to make what type of meat is called the jerk meat, drying the meat by putting salt and then expose it to the sun when it comes from the east. So it's being called the Ayyam al-Tashriq. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Ayyam al-Tashriq, Ayyam aklin wa shurbin, again, wa dhikri lillah azza wa jal. It's eating and drinking from the blessings and the grace of Allah azza wa jal, along with remember Allah azza wa jal, hopefully. And but nevertheless, the most prominent ritual is throwing the pebbles in the three stones. So in short, we want to, since we know that we have so many enemies as a human being, as a Muslim, but the number one enemy is shaitan. And once we target the leader, then everything goes down. How is this related to throwing in the pebbles, since these are the most frequent, repeated rituals in the three coming days?
طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين. Not necessarily that if you target the leader that others will follow. Unfortunately, there are devils of many types, humans and jinns, and of course وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, Satan, the one who has swore the oath of being the arch enemy of all the descendants of Adam. May Allah preserve us and our descendants from his evil. The concept, again, it commemorates what Ibrahim alayhi salam, our father, did. And of course, when I say father, Allah describes Ibrahim, millata abikum, Ibrahim. And this is a fatherhood in faith, not necessarily in lineage. However, the lineage is there to Ismail, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The meaning, however, is that we are required to repel evil. And remember that by seeking refuge in Allah Azza wa Jal continuously in our lives, this is the path of Ibrahim. This is the path of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the path of all the prophets, all the messengers, and all those who are believers who follow in that path. And this was done when Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded in the least form of revelation. Revelation has levels and ranks. And the least of the levels of revelation to the prophets and the messengers is when they see something in their sleep, which is known as true vision. And Ibrahim alayhi salam saw the command of Allah in a true vision. It wasn't a revelation that came to him directly, but rather in sleep. Yet he fulfilled that concept, and he said to Ismail, "Inni ara fil manami anni adbahuka fanzur madha tara." And he said to his son that I'm commanded to slaughter you, sacrifice you. And Ismail immediately submitted.
Look at the communication even.
فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. To the end of the meaning, Shaitan came to him and he tried to divert him from the command of Allah, but Jibreel commanded Ibrahim to throw the stones, and this is how we commemorate this action and repel evil and the devils.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Omar and Sheikh Muhammad. We are very proud to having you, and inshallah we are going to have a beautiful season, inshallah, finish our Hajj in the best manner, along with all the Hajj and also the rites and rituals that are being done by all Muslims all over the world. Again, Allahu Akbar, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Eat and drink as Rasulullah said, and remember Allah Azza wa Jal to the best of your ability in these days. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engulf us with His mercy and shower us with His forgiveness. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.